Hi, this is Adam Ralph. As well as organising Hampstead Chess Congress today, I also played an online match with Grandmaster Simon Williams, the gingergm, and it was played on chess.com, and the time control was 30 minutes per player for the game plus 15 seconds per move added on. And I thought I'd just show you the game quickly. It was part of a chesspatzer simul. There were supposed to be 13 players taking part. I'm not sure that all 13 made it in the end, but I played as chesspatzer IND, chesspatzer India. So have a look at the game and see what you think. It was a reasonable game. So I'm playing black, and I decided to play something unusual, mainly because Simon's playing several people at once, and I wanted to give him something to think about. So I've played this before, and quite often White will play knight f3 and turn it into a chiggerin. But in this case, Simon accepted the challenge and kicked my knight around. And in this position, I think probably the best thing is to take on f3. Knight takes f3 check, and follow that up with either e5 or e5 looks sensible. But I decided to play knight g6, and the idea of knight g6 is to play e5 anyway. But the problem with that is White it is Simon Williams, so he plays h4, ready to kick my knight, well, into touch. Where is that knight going to go? And in this position, it looks fairly dodgy. But h5 is forced, and also I don't mind playing h5. That stops Harry in his tracks. White plays e4, and I played e5. Now the only problem with e5 is what White played. If he just leaves the pawn there, Black plays bishop c5, and knight f6 and d6, and possibly follows it up with c6 and brings his queen out to the queen side, and it's okay. So White really has to play d takes e6, and if I played f takes e6 here, I think White just plays e5 and bishop d3, and this knight, this whole king side just looks chronic. So I played d takes, and it's not in Simon's nature to go for dull endgames, but I think this is still a very good move. I don't think White has a significantly better move here. If he doesn't exchange queens, I think Black is fine. So he exchanges and then played knight c3. And here I was quite happy. I thought I just play bishop b4 and cripple his queen side with bishop takes c3. After bishop e3, I think I might have been distracted by the fact that I was running a chess tournament at Hampstead. I'm doing my own simul here, so Simon is playing 12 people, let's say, and I'm organising a tournament in the other room for 60 people. So I'm doing my own simul. I'm trying to run this tournament and play this game, and I just played c6, forgetting that after he castles, check, king c7, he can play knight e2, and then I can't play bishop takes c3. But in a way, that worked in my favour, because that bishop covered a lot of these important dark squares. What I didn't want him to do was play knight f4, and if I take bishop takes f4 check, and then my king has no really decent squares to run to. The rook covers the d file, the bishop covers this diagonal. It looks horrible, and this bishop covers this diagonal. And to be honest, in the game, it kind of went like this. But I played e5, because I want to keep his knight out of these squares, give him fewer options. As the weaker player, in this game, what I'm trying to do is not to lose material and give away key squares too easily. I want to make white fight for it. c3, natural move, so where would you go? Bishop a5 to b6, maybe swapping off that dark squared bishop. I think I need that bishop on the diagonal from f8 to a3, so I moved it back, and white played knight g3. Now he's coming in on f5. Possibly he's going to play knight g3 takes h5 at some point. If I move my rook, I have to be very careful of that pawn. It becomes weak on h5. But I had a plan. I've got bishop e6. If you see in this position, bishop c4 is now a real positional threat. Really strong, covering this diagonal. So bishop e6 is basically, I'm not interested in the pawn. On a2, I just want to put my bishop on this square to stop him playing bishop c4. And I'm prepared in this position, if he goes knight g5, possibly, I'm just going to take it with my own bishop. Bishop takes g5, just to stop him playing bishop c4 and take over that diagonal. So e3, and I'm not entirely sure why white played that. I think that was possibly just a move. And I can play a5, and it looks like if he's got Harry, I've got Ari on the a file. Maybe a4, a takes b3. It looks good. Looks good, but I'm not totally sure it actually achieves anything because I've got these pieces stuck over here. I haven't got enough pieces to really attack him on the king side, on his queen side rather. Bishop a3 check, king c2. I'm not really getting anywhere, but it's a move, and I've got some potential. Knight g5. Now I've played my principled move to stop him playing knight takes e6 and to avoid having to drop my bishop on e6 back to some passive square. I played bishop takes g5, and here he played h takes g5. Now in this position, it looks like he's going to play knight takes h5 or rook takes h5, but actually if he does either of those, bishop g4 in this position wins material. So let's say he plays knight takes h5. I can go bishop g4. This is my square. Bishop e6 to g4, forking the knight and the rook on d1. So it's not going to happen. So I can afford to leave that h pawn for another move, and I need to find a good move. Developing move is always good, so I played my final piece to a good square, and simultaneously I'm stopping him playing knight f5 because I can take it twice. So I'm a happy bunny now. I've actually managed to develop all my pieces. And then he played bishop e2, and I realized that I've got to do something about the pawn, and I just thought, this looks fine. What's he going to do? He can't possibly play knight h5, so he's going to have to go knight f1. I thought that's an achievement. What did he do? Knight h5. Now I thought he couldn't play knight h5, and I completely missed the point of his knight h5 because I forgot that knights defend and move backwards. And I just played, I could have played rook g8, rook h8 to g8, but I played rook h7 with the idea of doubling my rooks on the h file, in which case he hasn't got anywhere to go with his knight, and he has to play something ugly like g4. And I thought my Christmases had come. But he played f4, and I suddenly realized that I'm in a lot of trouble. I've got to defend this dark squared diagonal from h2 to b8. I don't want to let him come to that square with exchanges with the bishop and I've got to watch out for f5, which is monstrous. So I've got to take it first, and now I've got to think about what to play in this position. I can't let him take on e6. I thought of playing bishop d7, but he has crafty moves like bishop b6 check, and if I take rook takes d7, and maybe he's occupying the file. Basically, if he gets rid of this bishop, I think my position is toast because I can't defend the light squares. So I went for this line, just accepting the fact that he can invade on d6, but I can survive with knight g6, and he can't get to d7, which would be crucial. But I honestly thought at this point, this is Simon Williams. He's a great attacking player. He's going to mate me. I mean, look at my king. I can't come out to c7. I can't go to a6. He really looks like if he can just land one more blow on my king, that's the end of that. So after rook d4, I was panicking a bit. I had an advantage in time, but the time had just basically disappeared trying to survive this position. And I thought, well, in this position, I've got to grovel quite well. So I played knight g6, and I thought maybe he was going to go bishop e3, but he went bishop d6, and you can see my king is starting to look uncomfortable, surrounded. And I just thought, I've got to bring this rook is slightly strange on h7, doesn't really need to be there. So I played rook h to h8, trying to bring it back into the center of things. Good rule is, if you see a piece that's misplaced and you've got time, reroute it, put it somewhere useful. And after that, he played c4, and I realized that, well, whatever I do in this position, he is going to play c5 himself. And I, having wasted a move on rook h to h8, I thought I need some activity in this position. I didn't really think about c4, c5, and I could get mated on the edge of the board with c5 check, king a7, rook a4 takes a5 mate. So I have to play what I played, c5. And then he can't go to d5, so he went rook d2. And in this position, I thought, well, having wasted a move with rook h8, I still went for some activity with h3. And after he takes it, well, I've achieved something because I've managed to exchange off a pair of rooks. And that's good, because normally the attacking side, white, if he had a pair of rooks, he'd have a lot of mate threats. But actually, in this position, he has a lot of mate threats anyway. He has two beautiful bishops. He's going to play e5 and bishop f3, and my king is still surrounded. So what am I going to do in this position? Bishop f3, and I've got to come back to e6. Now I'm thinking rook a8 to h8 and then invade. But for the moment, I have to stop him playing rook d5 takes c5, and then it's the end. But he plays a3, and now I realise that if I don't do something really quickly, he has got b4, and basically he's uncorking my king. I mean, he's going to bring his rook to the b file or the a file, whichever's appropriate at the time. So I need counterplay. So I played rook h8, and I'm not totally sure why he played king b2, but I used the move to play rook h3 with a tempo. And now I played, because he's taken his bishop off that diagonal from d1 to h5, I've got rook h5. Now I've worked out what was coming. I knew he was going to play b4. I knew that in this ending, if I get as many pieces off as possible, I've got a better chance of drawing. So what happened was, I took it. That's one set of pawns off, but it looks like he's going to take on c5, but I had this covered because I took the last pawn on the king side, and when he took on c5, I took it with the rook. And the whole point was that after bishop takes c5 check, I don't think he has anything better, king takes c5, I've now got a pawn for the exchange, but I'm also going to win by force with knight e5 takes c4, and I'm going to win that by force. I don't think he can defend that. I'm going to have 2 pawns for the exchange, and then I'm going to have a passed pawn on the queen's side and the king's side. At the very least, I can draw that. So I wasn't unhappy. In this position, I think I'm doing fine. I think it's a draw at least. I played knight e5, king c3, knight takes c4, and then he played something unexpected. I think he miscalculated. I think he knows, well, he hasn't got rook c8 check, and if he just goes rook g8, I just go g6 and then b5. Must be a draw at the very least, and black might even have chances to win. But he played something unexpected. He played bishop h3, sacrificing the bishop, with the idea that bishop takes h3, and then you go rook d5. He can't play rook c8 check and win the knight because it's covered by this bishop. So he went rook d5 check, and I went king c6, and possibly in this moment he realized king takes c4 loses to bishop e6, coming back and pinning the rook. So he went for some activity, but I think this was a blunder, and now black is winning easily, unexpectedly. So I've got a tempo to play knight d6, threatening knight e4 check or knight takes e4 check, winning the rook on g5. So he hasn't got time to play e5. And if he plays rook takes g7, I was going to play knight takes e4 check, and then f5, and then maybe bishop g4, and the whole thing sort of defends itself. But who knows what would have happened. But he went king d4 and I went knight d8. Now this was a mistake. In this position, I just go g6. I just go g6. I just go bishop e6. And then I use the rest of my time trying to work out whether or not I can maneuver something to a more active square and try and win this pawn. But I went a bit passive. I went knight e8 thinking, you know, I've still got this covered. Bishop e6 and then knight f6, maybe g6 and knight f6. Just get some activity for that knight. But to be honest, I wasn't thinking about winning here. I was just thinking about making sure I didn't lose any material. Rook c5 check, king d7, and then rook b5. And I thought about this, and I repeated moves without really thinking about it. I played this move, king c6. Now there's better moves. I mean, king c7 at least would have avoided what happened. And then I went into the other room. Don't forget, I'm organising a tournament in Hampstead. I went into the other room to start the round of chess that everybody was waiting for. Did that, came back, found that white played rook c5 check, and there was a message on the screen saying game drawn by threefold repetition. Now, I'm not sure that Simon would have claimed a draw. It just automatically on chess.com it gives you a draw if you repeat the position 3 times. Because Simon's the sort of person who would try and win in any position, and he might even be thinking that in this position. I suspect he knows he's lost, but I wouldn't put it past him to play on. So it was a draw, and I was very happy with that result and proud to draw with Simon. I suspect much earlier on he could probably have crushed me, and I'm not quite sure where, but let's be honest. If you were, let's say you were playing white in, let's find the position, that position, after, let's say after bishop takes f4 check, king b6. Now I think most players would be quite happy to be white. The rook looks stupid on h7. You got 2 bishops bearing down on black's king, and you got no problems just playing moves. It must be good for white, but somehow I managed to trick my way into this position. And I think what happened was black just has got enough time after bishop g2 to come back and sneak this pawn and then exchange off into a drawn ending, or at least a drawn ending, maybe even more. If he hadn't played bishop g2, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe he can play bishop d1 and just sit on the position. But either way, I was happy with the outcome of that game. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing another game with Simon and with the Chesspatzer clan. If you look at Chesspatzersunite, their website is fantastic. It's got all the games and all the results and some training videos that we've made. I think you'd enjoy it. Thanks for watching.